Hey everyone, welcome to Off the Top Rope here on the Off the Mic Sports Network. An interesting night of AEW television. The uh, the big takeaway from me, considering the way that wrestling media has gone this week, a lot of people being critical of the way WWE handled the Netflix debut, which I didn't have a problem with. You can go watch that video. I think if you're whining about that, you really didn't get the messaging behind it, and it's about a bigger picture. And there was some weird discourse on the internet today where there was some TV thing where it's like it only accounts for the people that opt in to give the information. Said that there was like 700,000 people actually watched Netflix, which I have no reason to believe that that number is accurate. WWE did everything in their power to make that a big fucking deal in terms of promotion and everything, and putting their big stars and so using social media and using like, events and something to do that. So just a lot of weird discourse going on. But in regards to AEW, the same flaws that plague them in 2024 are leering and following them into 2025. And we already saw it at the end of the year where they used the Continental Classic to bring back Kenny Omega to not even really set up a match that they're probably not going to do until July. So Kenny Omega makes his big return tonight on Dynamite to close the show. And what do we get? We get the Don Callis family. Haven't we done this already? Like, that's where he left. And he was in a team with Chris Jericho. The best thing that I could say about the show, there was no Chris Jericho anywhere near the show, which was awesome. But the Don Callis family, that's what we're doing with Brian Cage and Lance Archer and Kyle Fletcher. And by the way, Konosuke Takeshita was nowhere near this segment, which okay, like I mean that's a weird choice. But then Will Ospreay comes out, and seemingly we're teasing Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, and this is my problem. And I will say this from jump, and I'm gonna get killed for this by the AEW marks who love this shit. This is exactly what was wrong with WWE near Vince McMahon's end of as head of creative. They went back way too much to stuff that we've already seen before. As much as I'd be okay with seeing a Will Ospreay Kenny Omega match, that's not going to get you more viewership. That's not going to get you into more households. That's not going to get more attention on you. Like, they've already botched Kenny Omega's return. And this is like what, 13, 14, 15 months in the making after being out with diverticulitis. Like, this guy nearly died. And his first match back is a banger with Gabe Kidd that I've seen clips, and I haven't watched the whole match, but I've seen some clips. By all accounts, it was great. Kenny looked like his old self. He looked like he was in it, and it was an amazing match at the Tokyo Dome. And then he comes back on Dynamite. By the way, this is a promotion that he is an executive vice president in. Shows up, looks like he doesn't even want to be there in front of less than 3,000 people in Clarksville, Tennessee. If you can point out where Clarksville, Tennessee is on a map, you're better than I am, and you know your geography better than me. But he comes back. Don Callis is the first guy he comes out. Don Callis can't even get a word out. He goes and attacks him, and then he gets run down by guys who weren't even. This is how long this Don Callis thing has run its course. There's people in that family that weren't even there when Kenny Omega was feuding with them a couple years ago. Like, they've already botched Kenny Omega's return. And that being said, even Kenny Omega isn't saving this. Like, Will Ospreay and him will probably be a team. And you know what? I saw that story, and it was worse off with them teaming up against, as the with Tim and Chris Jericho as the Golden Jets. That was bad. Like, this will be better in terms of the wrestling quality, because at least Chris Jericho, like at least Will Ospreay, is way better in the ring than Chris Jericho. And Kenny Omega will be in a much better shape after, getting through that just, life-threatening illness that he dealt with. But this was not the right way to start this off. And now, hey, Kenny Omega's first match on Dynamite in a year and a half is against Brian Cage, who I like Brian Cage, but I have been given zero reason to care about Brian Cage pretty much from the minute that he got to AEW. So I'm not surprised that this happened. This has literally been this company, and nobody wants to point out the flaws in this place outside of people like me and other content creators who just really call it like they see it. Like, there's nothing that is really clicking, and then your big time angle is involving a guy in his 50s, a WWE Hall of Famer, going after the world championship against a guy who, by the way, was also in WWE, who doesn't have the decency to hold the world title outside of a briefcase. And then they determine his challenger in a gauntlet that you've done 5 or 6 times in the last year. And it's won by Will Hobbs, who I love Will Hobbs. But this push feels like a year or so too late. Some of it was due to injury, but some of it was just lack of trust and lack of build. And Jon Moxley's going to beat Will Hobbs. So, and then your whole show is really built around the return of Kenny Omega. And what happens? You're literally going to rehash an angle that you've already done. Just you ejected Chris Jericho, which is progress, but it's literally the same thing all over again. Big time rivals that started a rivalry in Japan. See, just check off all the things here. Like, rivalries started in Japan. 2 guys who had a rivalry that started in Japan. They moved to AEW, and they unite over a common cause, a hatred of Don Callis. Gee, man, like, brace yourself. Kota Ibushi's probably going to come in at some point and help him out. Like, it's just, I've seen this before, and it's probably going to lead to another match between Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. I've seen that before, and they were great, but it's like, when you do this stuff, and this is my problem with them going back to Okada, it's like, you're living off of fantasy and past fantasy booking. It's like, that's not the way to get your fans to come back and watch your show if we're going to do reruns. Why did we hate Vince McMahon so much? He kept doing rematch of Brock and Roman like 17, 18 times, and everybody got fucking tired of it. Like, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again when it's already so epic the first and second time, or whatever, however many times they've done it. Like, but this shows you what, Tony Khan is. He's a mark. He's a mark with a lot of money. So, like I said, I'm not surprised with how this whole thing shook out, but, see where the thing goes. All in all, nothing, really inherently bad. It's just nothing really sticks out about this AEW show. And now you see NXT approach nearly 1 million viewers. By the way, that's not even counting the LA market because of all the fire coverage. And if you are in LA, I am in LA, I am safe. But for anybody else in the LA area who's had to evacuate or has been affected by the fires out here in Los Angeles and Southern California, hope you're okay. Hope you're in safety, and you're holding your loved ones tight. It's unspeakable stuff. But NXT didn't even air. It didn't even air because of the fire coverage on the news. Almost 1 million people. I would bet WWE is going to and NXT is going to clobber AEW this week. AEW's been under 600,000. I wouldn't expect him to jump over that number with how this was promoted and with a lot of the things that happened on the show. It's just, like I said, you had a chance here with your biggest star, one of your EVPs in this company, to maybe do something a little bit different. And I knew exactly what they were going to do. They were going to go back to an old storyline. They immediately, Don Callis, it was right there. And, hey, I'm glad that it wasn't Chris Jericho, but hey, Will Ospreay comes out. I'm not surprised. It's like, I just don't get it, man. Like, you had an opportunity, and AEW has already botched the return of their biggest star. So that's off the top rope for now. Have a lot of great content coming up here on the channel. CFP, NFL playoffs. Cleveland Cavs are doing really good. So we'll talk about that on a later episode here on Off the Mic, the Off the Mic Sports Network. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.